Measurements on this shoe are 19 millimeters of cushion in the heel, 15 millimeters of cushion in the forefoot. From the Ultra Running Company standpoint, from our categorization, this is a low drop, transitionally cushioned road shoe. This is a $160 shoe. I think it's worth every penny of that. Hi, this is Nathan Lehman. I'm coming to you today from the Ultra Running Company in Myers Park. And today's shoe review is going to be the Saucony Freedom ISO. And this is the Saucony Freedom ISO. This is the men's version. I'm going to review it because I have no experience with the women's version. So first we're going to just cover the basics from Ultra Running Company standpoint. This is a road shoe. It's got a nice road tread on it, you know, great flat tread, not too much for traction as far as on gravelly or technical surfaces. So we're going to use this entirely on the road. As far as the amount of cushion on it, we call this a transitionally cushioned shoe. The measurements on this shoe are 19 millimeters of cushion in the heel and 15 millimeters of cushion in the forefoot. So what that means is that this is a low drop shoe. From the Ultra Running Company standpoint, from our categorization, this is a low drop, transitionally cushioned road shoe. Now the cool thing is with the Freedom, that doesn't tell the whole story. So this has been one that kind of busts our brackets a little bit. And the reason for that is because this is a part of the newest generation of shoes that uses a TPU, which is basically a confusing way to say polyurethane sole. So everything that you see here is made out of thermoplastic urethane, which means that it's different than the shoes that you're probably used to. To give you some background on that, that same material is usually what's used in car dashboards. So it's a material that takes a lot of compression and it actually spreads that energy out. So a typical shoe would be made out of what we call compressed rubber or blown rubber. Those are two different things. For a compressed rubber, you're going to take a big chunk of rubber and press it down into the shape that you want. And so the density of the rubber comes with how much it's compressed. With a blown rubber, you basically have a mold. You could think of it like a Jello mold or something along those lines, where you take your mixture of liquid rubber, put it in, it fills up the mold, and then it cools down and gives you the shape of the shoe. So that's kind of the two ways you can go about it. You can either compress the rubber down or you can pour it in. Interestingly enough, with this TPU, it's a bunch of little tiny beads of this polyurethane, and all these beads get pushed together and they form this sole in the shape that they want it. If you have a compressed rubber or a blown rubber, when you step on something on the ground, a rock, something along those lines, it basically goes up into the rubber and they compress more. With polyurethane, that compression, it goes up into the rubber itself, but it actually spreads it out. So the really cool thing about a TPU midsole, and that's this portion of it, the really cool thing about a TPU midsole is that it absorbs shock, but then it disperses it out. So it sends it in every direction instead of just compressing up. What that means to you is you can have less cushion but feel like you have more. This is a technology originally brought to market by Adidas for their Boost line. Everyone else thought that was a pretty good idea. Saucony, I think, was second to market with it about a year ago when they brought out this Freedom. Ultra also has it. For Saucony, their trade name for that is called Everrun. So Adidas has Boost, Saucony has Everrun. Ultra just came out with a shoe that we'll review in a different segment. And that has what they call the Ultra Ego, and it's all basically the same thing with some proprietary blends. So we're talking, if you were baking, these would all be loaves of bread, but they'd be slightly different recipes. So we think that Saucony really nailed this one. It's got a really nice responsive bounce to it, and so what you feel is you feel like you feel the ground. You get some nice, what we call proprioception, with those toes kind of moving around and feeling what you're landing on, but you also get a lot of protection from it. This feels like you're wearing a shoe with more like 25 to 27 millimeters of cushion underneath you, even though it only has 19. So the downside of TPU is that it's a little bit heavier. And so what Adidas did with that is ignored it and made heavier shoes. What the newest generation has done is actually taken an idea that Nike came out with. They call it Flyknit, and they use this engineered mesh to come up with a woven upper that basically has all of the weighty parts that used to be on shoes. The pieces that held it in place are now woven into the rubber. Into the fabric. So one continuous knit, has no seams. It's fantastic. It's actually much lighter weight than a similarly built traditional shoe. And so all the weight of this shoe is actually in the sole. So when you put it on, it's got an amazing feeling where you can tell that you've got something on. Saucony quotes this shoe at about 9.5 ounces. Unfortunately, like every other brand in the country, for men, they quote that as a size 9, which is fewer than 5% of our sales here at the Ultra Running Company. This is a size 12.5. This is much closer to our average. Our average for Saucony is around an 11 or so. So somewhere in between those two, probably around 10 ounces for an 11, 10.2 ounces. This is a size 12.5 and it's at 10.7 ounces. So you're gonna be in that range there, but traditionally people will say, I want a 10-ounce shoe. This is very lightweight, but if you're in a larger size shoe, it's gonna be a little bit over that 10 ounces for you. So like I said, 10.7 ounces for this shoe. Almost all the weight is below your foot. And so it's a really free feeling. The engineered mesh really stretches out and feels great on the foot. This is one of the shoes that we put on people and they just say, wow, I've really never felt anything like this. So that's the upper, that's the midsole, and we go on to the actual sole of the shoe, and this is the most durable sole that Saucony makes. It's a one-piece tread, and that does take away a little bit of the flexibility, so you can bend it over, but it doesn't have those natural grooves in it, but it's going to last you darn near forever. We don't throw out mileages or so, but if a typical shoe, the sole of it's going to last you 400 miles, this one may get you 500 or so, or maybe even more. We see it wearing really well and really evenly. The reason it wears evenly is because the tread is not that deep. The actual tread blocks are not deep. Since it's a road shoe, I think they look amazing. If you've seen a better sole than this, I challenge you to find it. I think overall Saucony's really knocked it out of the park aesthetically with this shoe. They've got some variations on it. If you can come across the chromo version, it's just fantastic, especially as we get into winter and darker times. If you're going out in the early morning or the late night, these particular shoes, you won't be able to see it because we don't have a flash on it from the camera, but this whole part lights up, these sides light up. It's like shooting a flashlight back at people when you do it. So a lot of different variations. I think the Freedom is one of the best looking shoes that we're going to have around. Nice sleek look to it. So how does the Freedom run? I think it runs fantastically well. So when I'm out on it, I get a lot of spring through my forefoot. I tend to be a forefoot striker, so I'll land kind of in this area. My foot will then touch down and I'll pop back off. One of the properties of these TPUs, and specifically the Everrun, is that they tend to return more energy. We'll talk about that a lot with shoes as we go through, but this energy return, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's not going to make you run faster. It's not going to slow you down at all. I'll give you the best example. If you were to run on a trampoline, you wouldn't be a faster runner, but it would feel pretty good. So what we tend to get on this is as you step down, you feel like you get a little more pop in your run with something like the Everrun. So I run in this shoe. This is one of the few shoes that I'd run everything from a 5K to a marathon, and it's really that flexible. With the upper, we've had great life on it. We really have very few returns on this shoe over the last 9 months to a year. It's just been a real winner with us. So if you're in the market for a road shoe, you want to feel the ground a little bit more, but still get that nice pillowy cushion feel, you're going to get that from the Freedom. And I recommend you come on in. As far as your foot shape, you can see what it looks here. It does have a taper on it, so if you have a wider, more square foot, you're probably not going to love this shoe. One thing the upper does give you though with that engineered mesh is it's very flexible. I've personally worn everything from a size 12 to a 15 and been able to run in it. 15 was a little large, 12 a little tight, but it's really allowed my foot to expand. We found that they do run a little bit small, and so you're going to definitely want to come in and try this on before you plunk down the money for the Freedom. So in that note, this is a $160 shoe. It occupies the highest point on Saucony's scale as far as pricing. In our store, we've got the Kinvara that starts at 110, and this is kind of their marquee shoe at 160. I think it's worth every penny of that. If you like the feel of the shoe, if you want a shoe that's going to last a little bit longer and give you a nice solid ride for a long time, this is going to be it. So come on in, try it out, and if you have any questions, we'll be here to answer them as always. Saucony Freedom ISO. Learn to love to run.